the show today. Hey, Julie, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. I'm actually excited about this topic. Well, not that I'm not always excited about the topics that we do. This one, though, I think is especially, it's a little scary, I think, when people are ready to take this step.
It is really scary. People find themselves totally bogged down, working a ton of hours, and they're like, oh my gosh, I need help. But that's a really scary step because now you're not only responsible for feeding yourself, but you got somebody else that's relying on you to feed their family too with your successful business. So it's a big step.
Yeah, I know. I have a colleague, and when he was growing his business, he said, this is probably isn't very encouraging, but he did say that once he started hiring employees, every day it was a matter of wake up, show up, throw up, wake up because of the stress. So good luck, people. Okay. But anyway, I love the way that you've broken this down to help people. And instead of just jumping in, hoping you can figure it out, you've outlined the steps for people.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and dive into number one.
Okay, the very first thing you need to do when you're starting to feel really overwhelmed is kind of figure out where you're spending your time and where somebody could actually help you. And so the first thing I really recommend people do, again, is track your time, figure out how much time are you spending on billing your customers, how much time are you spending on customer service, how much time are you spending in networking groups, how much time are you spending on social media posts, how much time are you spending servicing your clients. Figure all of that out so that you can really look at where you're spending time and where you can hire things out. And I'm going to tell you, this may sound weird, but I'm going to tell you to do this for your personal life as well.
Mm.
Because there are things in your personal life that you may choose to find help with instead of starting with your business. So everything from getting groceries to laundry to cleaning the house to running errands, look at really where you're spending all of your time. Obviously, you probably don't want to delegate date night with your spouse or, some of those other things that you really probably enjoy doing.
Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions.
Okay, maybe, but probably not. But so really look at that and figure out, where can you get some help? So
Okay.
that's always the first step is look and see what you can delegate to somebody else.
How do you start that list? Just making the list seems overwhelming sometimes. So
Yeah.
do you recommend like a running list that you just track or what?
I do recommend like actually using either, jotting things down on a piece of paper, using a time tracker. There's a lot of free time trackers out there that you can say, hey, generally speaking, right now I'm working on customer billing. Now I'm working on my bookkeeping. Now I'm working on servicing this particular client. And sometimes you have to get down into even more details, on every Thursday I'm going to these networking meetings on, once a month I've got chamber meetings. Whatever you're doing, keep a track of all of it. And one of the things before you hire somebody you'll also want to do is you look at that list is evaluate also, are all of those things actually providing you value? Because you may find as you look at that list that you may be participating in activities or doing stuff for your business that aren't doing anybody any good. You may find that in your personal life too. And so you may be able to even cut out some of those activities entirely rather than delegating them. And then start figuring out which tasks you can delegate. And one of the mistakes I see a lot of small businesses make when they first start looking at this is instead of getting help with the lowest value task, they start to pick the highest value task. They're like let's take my business for example. Let's say that I'm spending time doing tax returns and I'm spending time doing accounting and I'm spending time doing consulting and I'm spending time doing, administrative stuff. I might think, well, I'm an accounting firm. I need to hire an accountant to help me with accounting work, which is going to cost me a lot more than hiring administrative help or even a housekeeper possibly. But looking at those, and as you look at those tasks, assign a value to them. What is it going to cost you to outsource that item? And start with the lowest value items when you start looking at what you want to get help with. So
Could
that's my
you,
question.
yeah, could you define what you mean by value? Highest
Well,
value, lowest value?
yeah, you can look at it a couple different ways. I look at it as, first, what's it going to cost me to have somebody else do this? So when you're looking at, everybody talks about $10 an hour jobs. I don't know that they exist anymore. So when you're looking at, truthfully, when you're looking at admin work, you're probably looking at $15 to $20 an hour, maybe more if you're hiring a VA to help with some of that. Marketing stuff, they may be $25 to $35 an hour that it would cost you to have somebody else do it. Getting a outsourced, accountant high level to do things, that might be closer to $40, $50, $60 an hour. You start looking at the value of what each of those things will cost you to help you determine where the lowest value is. You don't want to, if your most expensive thing is, your customer service stuff, probably, and that's probably not the first thing that you want to delegate or to hire for. You want to look at those administrative tasks and those life tasks that people can help you, even if it's some of your personal stuff, help you take care of that stuff so that you can focus on your business and making money.
Okay, perfect. And I do like your point. You may come up with this list and find that some of them don't even have to be replaced. They can just be deleted.
Yes, I think we all spend time on things that we think we need to be doing for our business. But when you really analyze it and say, when's the last time anybody even acknowledged that I did this? When's the last time I got a referral out of this activity I've been doing? Look at some of that stuff and maybe decide that it's not worth doing.
Okay, perfect. That was good. Okay, so we're talking about 5 tips for your first hire. Number 1 was know the tasks that you need to hire for. Now we're going to talk about develop a strong screening process for your first hire. This is make or break it.
Yes, and it's really interesting. It's really hard, and I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And let's be honest, like here where we're at, the unemployment rate's pretty low. And so as you're looking for really quality candidates, a lot of them already have a job. So you really want to screen carefully. And so now that you've identified the list of tasks, you can start identifying what skills you need your people to have and what characteristics you need those people to have. So I'll give you an example of something that we do at my firm. As an accounting firm, details probably a big deal, right? So we want people that pay attention to details, and we want people also that follow instructions. We've got a lot of tax forms and accounting software and stuff, and there's certain way to do things. And we need to make sure that the people we're hiring are going to be willing and able to read the instructions and follow those. And so we put very specific instructions in our job posts. And honestly, it weeds out about 75% of our candidates.
Give me an example of 1 or 2 or 3.
This is going to sound really ridiculous, but one of the last jobs I posted, 75% of our candidates were weeded out because they couldn't follow the following instructions.
Ooh, okay.
Please include in your cover letter, I think it said reference, colon, and then what the job title was, and attach your resume as a PDF document. 75% of the candidates could not follow those 2 instructions. And so automatically we were able to weed out. That may seem harsh.
No.
But ultimately we have very specific ways we have to do things in our industry. And if people are not on their A game when they're applying for a job, they're probably not going to be improving once we hire them. So
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, because you needed them to demonstrate that they were detail oriented, not just tell you they were detail oriented.
Exactly. And then depending on the type of job that we're hiring for, we take specific tasks and actually have them perform those kind of as a test. Some people will use personality screening to make sure that the people have the right personality characteristics for the job. And so one of the things that I encourage you to do, if you've tried to hire in the past and it hasn't worked out and you're back to doing it all yourself, is really think about talking to an HR professional to help you develop that screening process. Or even just look at things and say, were there signs that this person wasn't going to be perfect to begin with? If you've had past failures, just to look at that.
Good. Yeah, so good. So that's a whole different way. That's very different than just posting a job description.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just still so excited about that one little tip. Like, I'm thinking of all the different applications for different industries. So if you need to have somebody who, like maybe in sales, and you want to make sure that they are well spoken, then maybe you want to attach a video of yourself, and it doesn't even have to be professionally done. Open your phone and shoot a video and tell me why you're the person I should hire you. Well, now, now they're showing that they can have that they are well, as I'm mumbling to get through this, but they're showing that they're well spoken and that they will take initiative and they're not afraid. And love,
absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah. So really, think about what those skills are and how can you kind of pre-screen for those. That video is a great example. One of the other things we do with our interviews is we do a lot of video conferencing with our clients. And so we will actually have Zoom interviews with our clients, with our potential employees, to see if they are comfortable with, figuring out the technology. We use a lot of technology. So we're looking for a lot of different skills when we go through the interview process to make sure people are comfortable with the way we do business.
Like, we could just stop right now. There was so much value in this so far. Okay, you still have more tips though, so let's keep going. Yes. So we've covered know the tasks you need to hire for, develop a strong screening process. Now we're going to talk about how to document your process. So that's interesting.
So ultimately, if you want somebody to succeed at a job and perform certain tasks that you used to do, they need to know how to do it. And so it's really important to document those processes so that your new person can be successful. If you just tell them, hey, go do this, but you don't tell them how or what, what systems they need to use to do it, or how to log in, or, all the little pieces of information you need to actually successfully perform a task, they're going to be floundering, they're going to be frustrated, and they're not going to be efficient. And you're going to say, well, that only took me 5 minutes and it took you 45. What's the problem? And ultimately, it's because the first time you did it, it took you 45 minutes. And then you figured out the easy way to do it, but you didn't tell anybody else what the easy way is to do it. And so it's really important to do that process documentation. Now, some people may be crying because nobody likes writing policies and procedures. There are a few people that do.
Some people like it.
Some people love it. I'm not one of them. So what I like to do when I'm trying to document a process is I will open up Zoom, have a meeting with myself, record my screen, and talk while I do the process. And so now I can actually just show them the process, and then I can ask them to document it in that formal written process as they go through and learn it and say, figure out what pieces of information are missing. Let me know if there's other steps, or if you figure out an easier way to do it, let me know. But let's get this documented. But here's a video to help you through it.
Ooh, so then you're giving that to the new employee, and the employee is transcribing it as they go. So they're learning it in multiple different layers. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. Okay.
Yeah. And it makes it an easy way to get knowledge out of your head and to the next person.
For sure. Yeah. Kind of like in Matrix where they have the module downloads.
Yes, exactly like the Matrix.
Gosh, I love that scene. I can't tell you how many times I meet somebody. I'm like, can I just get that one module out of your brain and download it into mine? That'd be so awesome. Okay, so number 4 is figuring out what the financial impact is.
So when people start thinking about hiring somebody, obviously you have to pay them. And that's the reality of it. And depending on what state you're in, there may be additional rules about paying them. So we know we've got their wages. We know we've got payroll taxes. You may have and probably have workers' comp insurance for an employee. Certain states have mandated benefits. So you might have sick time requirements or, vacation requirements, and you need to figure out and understand all of those. And you really want to take all of those things into account. But that's not all. You've got a new person coming on. Do you have somewhere for them to sit?
Hmm.
Do you need a computer for them? Do you need additional system access for them? Or just pay for additional seats, licensed seats in whatever softwares you're using? And so I really encourage you to go through and list out all the things that they need and what the cost is. Is there a monthly cost associated with it? Is it one-time startup cost? What's the salary ongoing going to be? What's the payroll taxes going to be? What's workers' comp insurance going to be? Do you need to have employment practice liability insurance now that you have an employee? Perhaps you do, but you have to really think about all of that and figure out what all those costs are, because you want to make sure you're ready for that before you hire this person, and that you've got the funds available to get them a desk, get them a computer, have them, know that they have somewhere to sit. Maybe right now you're renting a one-room office and you need to go to a two-room office. You got to think through all of that stuff before you just jump in, because you want to make sure you're financially ready. And, one of the tricks that we do with businesses as they're growing is we encourage them to start saving up for those. Don't don't wait until the last minute when you have to hire, but start saving up and saying, what, probably 6 months from now, I'm going to need more help. I'm at 50 hours a week right now. I don't want to get to 60 hours a week. I definitely don't want to get to 70 hours a week. So I know I'm going to need help. So I need to start setting money aside for these pieces. And we also, I love to have 3 months of wages in a savings account before I hire that new person.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest. When you start at a new job, are you fully functional on day one?
Not so much. And that having that cushion would alleviate what I said at the beginning of wake up, show up, and throw up. Like, you won't have that stress as the employer of
Exactly.
how do I make payroll?
Exactly. And you're not sitting there when they're first starting going, you're not making me money yet. You're not making me money yet. You're not making me money yet. And because you know that they're not, and you have that money set aside. And so you can draw from those funds while they get trained, and everybody figures out the rhythm now that you have your first employee.
Yes. So good. Okay. And that kind of leads into the next one, which is prep for the first day. You can't just have them show up and they go, do we have a chair for you?
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff to do to prep for that first day. And that's everything, again, from that equipment and having it up and ready. And, some of this stuff seems dumb, but most small business owners don't have an IT person. You're your own IT person. You're your own janitor. You're your own, you do everything. And so when you are thinking about this, you have to make sure that you've got the equipment all set up and that it's working and that it's actually connected to the printer and that it's actually connected to the internet, and that, you've got the login set up for this person, because you don't want to just throw them in and have them spend the first 2 or 3 hours watching you get everything set up. So equipment's a big deal. Systems are a big deal. I laugh because I've got a whole long checklist of systems that we use and that we've got to get access set up for. And when I first started hiring people, I did not always follow my own advice. Some of these I've learned over the years that I need an onboarding checklist when I bring on somebody new, so that I go through and evaluate. Here's the 10, 15 systems that we use. Did I set them up in my Google for Business so that they have an email account? Did I set them up on the network? Did I set them up on ShareFile? Do they have access to QuickBooks? Go through that whole checklist and make sure which systems, and do an analysis. Do they need access to that system? Yes or no? If yes, we get them set up and make sure everything's ready to go. So that's one. The next one is more of a compliance issue with onboarding, which is what paperwork do you need to have that employee fill out to start? And a lot of people don't necessarily do all this stuff right. So when you have a new employee start, you need an I-9. An I-9 is the verification that people are authorized to work in the United States. So you need to get that filled out, and you need to fill it out properly, which means you actually need to examine the documents listed on the second page of the form that your employee brings in. So make sure you get that done. Make sure you get a W-4 for your employee so that you know how much to withhold for taxes. But have that paperwork ready and fill it out. Now, if you've got other, employee onboarding paperwork, or you need employee handbook signed, etc., you want to make sure you have all that stuff ready for them when they show up. Next one is my biggest point for everybody that's hiring somebody is you need to have a payroll system. You have to do it. A lot of people think they'll do it by hand or don't plan for it in advance and go, oh yeah, I need a payroll system, but they'll just write their employees a check in the meantime. And all of a sudden it's been 2 months and they still don't have a payroll system and nothing's been processed correctly and no taxes have been remitted, and it creates a big problem for the employer. So absolutely get a professional payroll system. We recommend ones that will actually submit your payroll taxes and your payroll tax reports automatically for you.
Sure.
About 60% of businesses end up with payroll tax penalties each year.
60%?
60%. Wow. Or maybe it's 60% over their lifetime that they end up with payroll taxes. But
sure.
It's most companies that are trying to do this themselves absolutely get a penalty because they do something wrong. They forget, okay, this needs to be paid on the 15th, but then the report goes in on the 31st. There's a lot of rules around timing and deadlines. And there's rules for the state and there's rules for the federal. And in some localities, there's, counties, there's cities, there's school district requirements. There's all kinds of weird stuff out there depending on what state you're in. And so you want to make sure you're working with a payroll company that can handle that for you. So everybody knows, everybody's heard of ADP probably at some point in their life. That's one of the big payroll companies. There's Paychex. Of course, our friends at Intuit have QuickBooks full service payroll, which if you're going to, again, I really encourage people to get that full service so that the payroll taxes and stuff. Gusto is another one that we've got a lot of our clients using and that they really like the interface, both as the employee and the employer side. But pick one out, get it set up, do it before your first employee starts. There are tax numbers and accounts that you need to get set up with the states that take time. And you want to make sure you start that process, I would say about a month before your new person starts. It's not always possible. Sometimes people decide at the last minute, but I always encourage people to prepare in advance. Obviously, that's what we like to talk about. And so make sure you've got all that set up and really work at picking out a good payroll provider. Once you have that done, another thing to really think about as you're onboarding somebody new is that person, going back to my earlier statement, they're not going to be fully efficient and functional on day one. You can't just set them free and go, let's do it. You're going to have training time. And so if you were working 60 hours a week before, you may well be working 80 hours a week for the first bit while you're training this person to actually take over some of these tasks. So you want to really think about that and have a plan for how you're going to manage your time. Give them the training time that they need and not just, throw them into the deep end and see if they can tread water. That's not nice. So make sure you've got that training plan and also a plan for how you're going to get the work done that still needs to get done while you're training. And Last but not least, I want you to think about what you're going to do with once you have them trained, you're going to have more time available to you. In theory, you just offloaded stuff. So, how do you make the best use of that time? Maybe it's getting time back with your family that you were giving up, but maybe it's, hey, I can provide additional services. I can be out marketing more. I can use my skills in these other areas because this person's taking over these things for me.
Mhm.
Figure out how you're going to use your free time so you really get a return on your investment in this new employee.
Very nice. I like that. Like, clearly all of this comes from, your experience of having done this a couple
Yes.
times.
Yes.
So I have a couple questions for you. One is there a difference in this process between hiring a 1099 and a full-time employee?
Absolutely. And so that's an important thing to think through too. When you look at compliance, there are rules about who should be an employee and who should be an independent contractor. But those rules are not necessarily clear, black and white. If you go here, it's definitely employee, and here it's definitely a contractor. So the things that they're looking at usually are kind of control. Who has behavioral control? Who has financial control? And who's deciding how the job gets done? Who's deciding when and where you're working? Do you have the ability to make a profit or loss as the person's doing the job? Those things all come into play, and you don't want to make a mistake around that. So if you're hiring an employee, the I-9, the W-4, all of that stuff is in play, making sure you're paying payroll taxes. If instead you hire an independent contractor, for example, we use independent contractors to do, let's start with janitorial services at the office building, or
Okay.
or you may hire a social media consultant to help you with your social media. You look at some of these things. Obviously, you might hire an attorney to help with your legal agreements, because that's probably not something that you should be figuring out yourself. That's probably not a good use of your time. So all of those people are independent contractors. And when you hire an independent contractor, it's important to get a W-9 from them. You may have 1099 reporting requirements for those people. And you also have to remember that when you do hire somebody as an independent contractor, you do give up some of the control over
Right.
how they do things, when they do things, and you have to weigh, which one you really need.
This is all good stuff. I can't even believe we're almost out of time. So are all of these things, because yes, you're an accounting firm, but I know that what you do is you coach business owners in general. And is this all encompassing? Like, when you're working with your clients, do you coach them on all of this?
When we're working with clients, we absolutely coach them on, let's figure out, when our clients are working too much or they're thinking about hiring somebody, we do say, okay, what are you going to have them do? How are you going to pay for it? Let's make a plan so that we have the funds available. Let's make a plan so that we get payroll set up right. And let's make a plan for how you maximize your time. We do definitely talk about those because we want our clients to be profitable. And so doing these things right helps with profitability.
Perfect. That was awesome. That was so much good information. How can people get a hold of you directly if they have any other questions?
Feel free to use the contact us button on our Facebook page, Spark Accounting Solutions. Cool. And we will get back with you.
Perfect. Anything else, Julie, before we end?
I think that's it.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Good luck, everybody, with your hiring your first employee. You've got everything you need now to make it happen.
Perfect.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.